Here I would like to show you how we can use the sum function, the SUMIF function, as well as the SUMIFS function in Microsoft Excel on any given data set. So for us to be able to clearly explain these three functions, I have this data here that was generated for company XYZ for the sales that were generated in the year 2023. So kindly note that, ladies and gentlemen, these figures are fictitious and they're solely generated for the purpose of recording this video, and they do not belong to any company that is in existence in the real world. So thank you very much for that. So a question might come, for example, that might want us to use the sum function and say maybe calculate the total sales that were generated by the company. And for us to do that, I can simply come here and say equals to sum, and then from there I highlight all the sales that have got the sales that were generated by the company, and then after that I close and then I press enter. And then as you can see, ladies and gentlemen, we are obtaining 374,950 as sales generated by company XYZ. So that is how we use the sum function. However, from the previous videos that I have recorded and shared, we can check out for them. I did also highlight that there is another way whereby we can also calculate the total, or we can calculate the sum, of which in this case I can highlight all the data that I have here that needs to be added, and after that I make sure that I highlight as well the next available cell, and then from there I go to my formulas here, and then from there I can press auto sum. The moment I press auto sum, Microsoft Excel will calculate all the values that have been highlighted, and that answer will be placed into the next available cell. So as you can see here, the value that has been highlighted, the value that we have obtained from the second method is 374,950, which is exactly similar to the answer that we got when we used the sum function. Therefore, we can 100% be confident that the answer that we got using the sum function is also correct. Then from there we can move on to look on another aspect of how we can use the SUMIF function. For example, a question might come and say, find the total number of sales that were generated by company in Europe. Find the total number of sales that were generated by the company in Europe. Now the difference between question 1 and question 2 is that question 1 wanted us to find the number of sales in general, but question number 2 is now more specific. They want us to focus solely on Europe. Therefore, for us to do that, we come here and say equals to SUMIF, then open bracket, SUMIF. So the moment we open our brackets, Microsoft Excel already gives us guidance on what kind of information is expected by Excel that we are supposed to input, of which in this case it is the range where our special criteria lies, of which our special criteria lies in the continent. We are now want to focus on the specific continent. Therefore, the range that we're supposed to highlight there are the continents that have been given from number 1 up to number 18. And then after highlighting that range, I can then put a comma. Then now we have to specify what is the criteria that is that Excel is supposed to focus on. And in this case, it is Europe. And then after that, I can then close my bracket. I can then put a comma, and then from there I can highlight the sum range or the cells where Microsoft Excel is supposed to look for the figures that are supposed to be added together. And then after that I can then close my brackets, and then I can see that we are obtaining 94,950. So these are the cells that were generated by the company in Europe. If we then want maybe to check, if you want to check whether this figure is correct, I can simply come and say equals to, and individually select the cells or the cells that were generated in Europe. For example, I've got this number 3 here, cells that were generated for touchscreens in Romania. Then I also put a plus, and then look for other Europe. These are checklist cells that were generated in Belgium, and then from there put a plus. These are cell phones again that were sold in England. Then from there I put a plus. Do we have another Europe? Yes, number 15. I look for touch screens again that were sold in England. Then from there I look for another one, laptops that were sold in England. Then from there I press enter. So as you can see, ladies and gentlemen, we are still obtaining the same answer. However, the advantage of using the SUMIF function is that even if your data is too big, you can quickly calculate the total number of cells for any given continent, unlike when you're supposed to individually select. For example, if you've got a data set that has got 100 lines, to individually select, you might end up missing other cells that were made and understate the total number of cells generated by the company. Therefore, using the SUMIF is going to be the best ideal method to take in this case. And then from there now, we move on to the last and the very important function in Microsoft Excel, which is the SUMIFS. Now, as you can see now, it's a SUMIFS with an S, which means it's a plural, meaning we're now looking at more than one criteria that have to be met for us to be able to calculate the required or the desired number of cells. For example, the question might come and say, calculate the total number of cells that were generated by the company in Canada using the SUMIFS function. Therefore, what we can do here, ladies and gentlemen, I can come here and say equals to SUMIFS, and then I open bracket. Then, as you can see, we are now being guided by Excel, and in this case we are now starting with the sum range, unlike in the SUMIF that we just did, where the sum range was the last criteria to be done. In this case, sum range is the first requirement that is to be met. So we come here and highlight all the cells that we have that were generated by the company in different areas of operation. And then after that, I press in a comma. Then I have to select the criteria range. So the first criteria that we need to check, maybe we can restrict Microsoft Excel in terms of continent. We can restrict Microsoft Excel in terms of continent, and we know that Canada is found in the North American continent. Therefore, my first criteria that I can use to restrict Microsoft Excel, I can simply tell it to focus on the North American continent by highlighting all the continents in the data, and then from there I can select the North American continent so that we restrict Microsoft Excel to only focus on North America. Then from there I put a comma. I now go to criteria range number 2. Now we have restricted Microsoft Excel to focus on a specific continent, which is North America. Now we now need to further restrict Microsoft Excel to only focus on Canada. Therefore, to do that, I can then come again and highlight all the countries that we have in our data set, and then from there put a comma, and then the criteria now, or what is it that Microsoft Excel is supposed to strictly focus on among these countries? It is Canada. Then after that, I can then close my parentheses, or I can close my brackets, and then I press enter. Or it's giving me a value. Let's see, where did you make a mistake in this case? Okay, so we've got criteria number 2. We've got criteria number SUMIFS. We've got criteria number 2. We have selected. So this is this. Okay, so the sum range, something happened to our sum range. So our sum range, we say that we discussed that it's supposed to be we highlight all the cells, that is from E number 3 up to E number 20. From E number 3 up to E number 20. Then from there I can then press enter. So as you can see, ladies and gentlemen, if you make a slight mistake on your formula, you might not be able to get the correct value. So the other skill that you need to develop is troubleshooting where exactly the problem is by revisiting your formula. So in this case, we can see now that we're obtaining what? We're obtaining 100,000 in terms of cells that we made in Canada, of which we can also come and further prove that by simply coming and selecting all the cells that we made in Canada. That is cell number E6 plus, then also we've got cells that were done on cell phones, that is cell number E8 plus, then I look for Canada again. Do you have Canada? Yes. For touch screen, that is 15,600. Do you have another Canada? No. And then from there we press enter. So as you can see, ladies and gentlemen, we are still obtaining the same answer. However, using these methods of individually selecting cells to be added, it requires time, and you might be vulnerable into missing some of the cells, such that you may may understand, or you might even select more other cells which are not required. And also if you are using when you're dealing with a big large number of quantity, for example, let's say if this data had 100 lines, it's what's going to be tiresome if we have to individually select the cells to be added. But with the SUMIFS function, it makes the job to be very easy and less time consuming. So ladies and gentlemen, that is how we use the SUMIF and the SUMIFS function in Microsoft Excel. So thank you very much. Please continue watching, and also do like and subscribe to my channel. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Have a blessed day. Thank you so much.